Finally, after 8 long months of waiting, a good ninja show. So Ninja Warrior France Season 8 took on the subtitle Facing Against Legends or something along those lines, and immediately I was skeptical because it was very clear that this was going to be a Ninja versus Ninja show, and I have seen way too much of that this year to have any faith in any of these shows doing Ninja versus Ninja now. But this season actually pulled me back in somewhat. There are, of course, some flaws. This show isn't perfect, but there's a lot more that they did right than they did wrong. The qualifiers started off as a race between two different competitors. They were either rookies or novice competitors who maybe made it to the semifinals but never advanced further than that. Those guys would race on a course, and it was surprisingly entertaining. Now, not all of the runs were super fun. There were definitely a lot of races in every episode that would end on the second or third obstacle, and that was not fun to watch. It was actually very tough to watch, especially because they would do profile pieces for both competitors, and so you feel like you really did waste your time. But there were more good runs than there were bad runs by a long shot, so I was entertained enough to be like, we're chilling. There were a lot of different elements on this course that I actually really appreciated from a course design standpoint, because they took something that on paper sounds stupid and they made it good. The fourth obstacle is a split decision. The first person to make it to that point picks one obstacle and forces their opponent to go on the other obstacle. Now you might think, okay, obviously, pick the one that plays to your strengths more, or pick the one that you go faster on so you get a head start. And these were kind of equal. Imagine my surprise when things like the butterfly wall, the rolling log, the kaleidoscope, and the curved body prop were all basically done to where both competitors, no matter what they chose, would get off to the next obstacle around 1 or 2 seconds of each other. Like, they kept the races close by picking different obstacles that tested very different skill sets, took very different movements, and it still remained a balanced race. No one choice on split decision was a dead giveaway that you were going to win. After that was the warped wall, and right in between the two walls was the mega wall. And if you got up the mega wall, you would automatically win your race, and you would get a speed pass sending you straight to stage 1. I personally like this because it was a lot of risk being taken, and the people who didn't get it tend to lose their races because they would destroy any chance that they had at keeping a lead. They would spend so much time on the mega wall that their opponent would pass them, and it would be really salty, really bittersweet, but at the same time, I like that mental aspect. I like the strategy behind it. So I don't blame them for trying, and I would like to see more of that, quite frankly, at least on game show ninja competitions, not leagues. The last obstacle are the water walls, and I know a lot of people hate the water walls. I get it. I don't really like the water walls either. But as a race, yeah, this was by far the most entertaining the water walls has ever been. They took an obstacle that I just absolutely despise because of how slow and boring it is, and by putting 2 people in there, actually made it intense and entertaining, because it's not just a race through the obstacle, it's a race to the buzzer. So yeah, they made split decision random and still good. They had a good mental aspect with the mega wall, and they made the water walls kind of entertaining to watch. I consider that a W. The semifinals had the top 6 men and top 2 women from qualifiers race against the legends. Who are the legends? None other than the all-stars of Ninja Warrior France. We're talking people who have beaten all 4 stages, made it to stage 3 multiple times in a row, known for their speed on stages 1 and 2, been last man standing, last woman standing, you name it. This was a loaded field of legends. First place from the qualifiers would get to pick between any of the competitors to race, and then second place would pick, and then third place, obviously, with fewer options as you go down the leaderboard. Now, in terms of picking opponents, we've seen some very rigged manners of doing so in other ninja shows. Some that were very clearly only meant for drama. This was more of a scientific approach to it almost, because it guarantees that the best competitors advance to the finals. If your fastest qualifier person has the chance to pick the worst of the legends, then that means that the stronger of the 2 will obviously get through. Now, if you're 6th place for the men and you have to pick the last person, that does mean you're probably racing against one of the best ninjas in France, and you're screwed. But at the same time, 6 men and 2 women advance to the finals, and it guarantees with this picking order thing that the best 8 ninjas from each episode advance to the finals, so I'm not mad at it. The semis course itself was pretty speedy. Everyone finished within a minute 20 or less. It's what I like to see. So I didn't have a problem with that either. My only gripe with this round would be that this does mean that the Legends and or All-Stars skip the entire first round of competition. Do I think that's a little cheap? Yes, but spoiler alert, pretty much all of the top 10 were Legends this season. Like, it did not change anything. They still dominated the season, and no surprise. So I guess it didn't really matter at the end of the day. It is just kind of weird that they get to skip a whole round though. Jokers were back. Jokers are modified safety passes where if you fall on an obstacle, you start back at that obstacle and your timer is frozen. So any time that you spent on your first attempt is lost, and you have the rest of your time limit to get through the rest of the course. I think it works better than traditional safety passes, and I don't think it's completely defeating the purpose of what Ninja is. So I'm okay with it. Moving on. Stages 1 and 2. From a course standpoint, I quite liked all of them. From a format standpoint, I had problems. Stage 1 this season was the same as last season. The top 8 competitors advanced automatically regardless. 9th to 16th place had to battle each other on the invisible ladder in like a play-in bracket to advance to stage 2. And I don't really like that. I think it's just pointless. But at the same time, I guess I'm just not as upset about it as I was last season. I think now that I'm expecting it, I'm okay. Is it still great? No. I'm not a fan of how they formatted that stage 1, but they did use some good obstacles on the course itself, and some very deserving athletes advanced. Someone just started their super loud truck outside. That's fun. Stage 2 was a good course overall, but it had no time limit. Yeah, I'm not a fan of not having a time limit on stage 2. I thought it was a very odd choice, but I think because Salmon Roll was on the course, they didn't want people to rush Salmon Roll maybe, or they just, I don't know. I don't know what their thinking was in there. I don't like it. Besides that, the rest of the finale was awesome. Stage 3 added Final Frontier. I think that's the perfect spot to have Final Frontier. We had 3 finalists, and while it was just a rope, I do still like what they do with the rope. The idea behind becoming the next Ninja Warrior France is that you beat the fastest time of the previous champion. So it's constantly forcing you to get better. Not only did we have the first person to win the money in Ninja Warrior France, not only did we have the second person to win the money in Ninja Warrior France, but we had a third finalist beat them both to become the 3rd champion of Ninja Warrior France by the show rules. He's the 5th person to beat all 4 stages, but the 3rd person to get the money. It was a star-studded, absolutely loaded finale with heavy hitters on stages 2, 3, and the final stage, and it could not have gone better. It was so good. In fact, it was so good that it made me overlook the fact that stage 2 didn't have a time limit. It also helps that stages 2 and 3 are run back to back. You hit the buzzer on stage 2, you walk right over to the cliffhanger to start stage 3. It's not like, oh, they get all this rest time and no time limit on stage 2. So no, at least they're pumped. At least they're exerting energy, and they have to do the rest of stage 3 after stage 2. So I'll give them a pass. Stage 1, stage 2, fair enough. Stages 3 and 4, loved it. Also, shout out to my guy Matthias for winning the money. That was so cool. I got to meet a lot of these competitors at the World Championship in June, and they were so nice. All of them, every single one of them. Ilian, Clement, Matthias, Maron, so many people, and they're so talented. They're so talented. I continue to just be impressed by Ninja Warrior France, which is saying something because the last 2 seasons I have not liked. I actually really enjoyed seasons 1 to 5 of Ninja Warrior France, and I would recommend it to people trying to get into International Ninja. Season 6 was a little I wasn't like a huge fan of it, definitely a step down in quality. Season 7, bleh. But this season made Ninja vs. Ninja interesting, spiced it up with some very different ways to balance a course that worked, made boring obstacles good, and then delivered one of the hardest finales in Ninja history in recent years at the very least. With that said, I do have some criticisms. Specifically with their editing, I thought that the profiles just went on a little too long sometimes. When we were introduced to the Legends in the semifinals of the qualifier episodes, it was qualifiers and semis in one episode. When we're introduced to the Legends, we get a profile piece about them, and it makes sense. It's the first time we're seeing them since last season, so let's get reacquainted with the Legends. However, then they do another fluff piece for the person that we just saw in the qualifiers like an hour ago They didn't need to do that. They could show us this is how they did in the qualifiers, and they hit the buzzer. Let's see how they do against one of the titans of the sport. Instead, they did a full-on fluff piece about their personal life twice in one episode, and that just really didn't do well for the pacing for me. It did drag in those areas, but at the same time, everything else I felt was pretty necessary. That is honestly the only piece of editing that I was like, I don't know if that's the most necessary thing in the world. But besides that, I had a great time watching this. I think it was not like an amazing show. I do feel like I'm slightly overhyping this because it's like I've been fed piles of dog poop for the entire year of 2023 when it comes to ninja shows. And now I've been given a pile of dirt, and it's like, it's good in comparison to the dog poop. Would I say that this season is dirt? No, it's better. It's better than that, but either way. I would say if I put it on a tier list, it's maybe in like the B tier. It was a good season. It wasn't a great season, but it was a good season. Is B tier like amazing? No. But is it still good? Yeah. I'm very excited to see what they do with season 9 now, because now they have a new champion. They potentially could stick with the races, or they could try up another format, which I really hope they don't do, because every time they try another format, it's not very good. This is the only one that's really worked in the last 3 years. I hope they stick with this racing thing because it works. It does work. Or they could go back to traditional ninja, which I don't think we are going to. I just wish they would fix stage 1. So, Ninja Warrior France Season 8, if you guys want to watch it, click the link in the description. You join my Discord server. We'll get you to the archives where you can watch all of the episodes. And if/when they do get announced for Season 9, you know that we'll be doing watch parties. Take care. I'll see you next time.